Now, we have to take you to the La Palm Royal Beach Hotel for the dialogue. Today's International Women's Day. I'm sure you know by now. And there's a keynote address being given. Let's take you there now.
Of institutional memory when it comes to the laws, the legal framework, policies, and anything that seeks to protect women and girls. She has served on countless boards and councils in this country. She has an unnumbered publications to her credit. She is no other person than Her Excellency Judge Professor Mrs. Kuenyehia. Madam, respectfully, we invite you to give us the keynote. Please, let's do it. Ghana, we are privileged to have people such as her to be in our midst on an important day such as this. Can we continue giving her a clap? Is she not amazing? Is she not an inspiration? I feel encouraged anytime that I see her. Madam, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I hurt my knee some weeks ago, so I'm not very mobile. The Chief Director of the Ministry of Gender, Women, and Social Protection. You have such a long name, I normally forget. The Head of Civil Service, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the fraternity of the media, and all other protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the organizers, Star Ghana and the ministry, for asking me to speak at this most important event. Once again, it is our privilege to celebrate International Women's Day, and I'd like to take the opportunity to salute all women in Ghana, especially those in this room. Let us make the best of this day as we speak to build on the gains we have made in our bid for gender equality and parity. The theme for our celebration today is Balance for Better, examining progress and prospects for gender equality in Ghana. This theme allows us to step back to see how far we have come on our equality and how we can accelerate our activities in order to make better progress. I believe that we have had mixed outcomes in our quest to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. We have made some progress, a lot in some areas, a little in others. Sometimes we have regressed a little, but we've been marching on nevertheless. I think discrimination is so embedded in our culture that it's always an uphill task to make any headway in many areas that women need to participate in the development process. But you will all agree with me that if women are 51% of the population of this country, then this country cannot develop with only the 49% of men. Without the participation of women, and I mean proper participation in the development process, Ghana is not going anywhere soon. We need to make sure that women have a say in everything that goes on if we are to make progress as a nation. There are so many issues concerning women. Now this morning, I cannot go through them all. I'm limiting myself to look into 3 aspects of governance and politics, economic empowerment, and access to health and education. That does not mean that violence against women, for example, is not important. It doesn't mean that child marriage is not important. I think that as we go into our breakout groups and so on, some of these issues will come up. But the issues are so many that one needs to prioritize and look at them in a systematic way. There are many challenges facing women in governance and politics. Decision-making. And decision-making doesn't mean decision-making at the government level, at the household level, family level, at the community level, at the regional, district level, at the regional level, before we even come to. There are many challenges, and this inhibits women from, even in their family, at least in my family, if not any, in Akwapim. When there's a family meeting, I am the eldest of my family, my mother's children. I have a male brother after me. When I start talking, I'm told, no, we don't want to hear you, we want to hear your brother. I have established this firm custom that in that family, I am the eldest, and I speak, and nobody else speaks. It just shows you how we get intimidated into following the custom. So I don't know who established custom, and I don't think anybody here knows. But whatever it is, it binds us, it intimidates us, it guides our lives. The fact of the matter is that we are all human beings. We all contribute. At the family level, women contribute more. Not in terms of money, but as you know, in terms of many other things. And therefore, there is no need for them to be pushed aside when it comes to decisions affecting them. And this leads, of course, to low self-esteem as far as leadership is concerned. And you can see that throughout the fabric of the society. Gender stereotyping in politics means that men should do politics, women should not be seen, should not be heard. They should be seen as cheerleaders and not leaders of substance. Those who venture into politics get harassed, insulted, and I don't need to go through it all. I can't rehash it all. They face financial challenges because you need financial resources and others to be able to participate effectively in politics. They do not get support from other women or their families. Their husbands, most husbands, let me be honest, do not support their wives when they go into politics. We have a few very good ones who support their wives to go into politics, but it's not everybody. We can go on and on about the barriers in governance and in politics. When you are in Accra, you do not see that there are not many women in decision-making positions. It's when you go out of Accra into the rural areas, into the regions, that you see what is going on. Because in Accra, we have a room full of women leaders here and more outside. So it doesn't seem like. One day, a long time ago in Zimbabwe, I met a minister, a government minister, a big man. They had just constituted the electricity board in Accra. So I asked him, how can you constitute a board for electricity company without even one woman? He looked at me very strangely and said, what are women got to do with electricity? And I was horrified because I said, but women use electricity in their homes. They are the ones who are in the house. They are the ones who cook with it. They are the ones who do things with it. So how can you ask me what electricity has got to do with men, women? It led to a long argument. The long and short of it is that the next constitution of the electricity board, I think I saw the name of one woman, a token representation of women. If we go to economic empowerment, we have the same problems. For example, we have a terrible land tenure system in this country. Therefore, women farmers do not have access to the one economic resource they need in order to move forward, and that is land. They always hold land either because of their husbands or because of the largesse of the family. They don't have title to land. That means that if she cultivates a cocoa farm and the husband decides tomorrow that he wants that farm, too bad for her. There's nothing she can do. Commercial property is beyond the means of many women because it is expensive. Getting access to credit is a huge problem because you need collateral. They don't have the collateral. Inadequate education. Sometimes they don't even have the level of education to be able to manage their finances, because you can manage your finances and save, if possible, and use your savings for something. They don't have that. Wherever we go, there are many challenges and barriers facing women. I'm not saying that we haven't made progress. We've made a lot of progress. Otherwise, how did we identify all these barriers? Access to health. The story is even worse in that direction. It is distressing to see on television sometimes a pregnant woman going to give birth, being carried in a wheelbarrow. And you ask yourself, what is happening in our dear country? Or being carried at the back of a motorbike on terrible roads. Ghana is not made up of Kumasi, Accra, Takoradi, Sunyani. The majority of women live in the rural areas. And yet, it seems as if development forgets about these rural areas. The roads that we see on television where people are being taken on wheelbarrows or whatever, motorbikes or bicycles even sometimes. Access to health means being able to have a health center or a clinic near where you live. Access to health means the clinic or whatever facility is near you has to have adequate provisions. They have to have doctors or nurses, qualified people in charge, so that when there is a problem, they can help. There are fees involved. We have had stop and go with national health insurance. I am not aware that the national health insurance is even working now. So even if you have national health insurance and it's not working, you go to a health facility, you have to pay. That means a lot of women cannot access health. And it is a basic human right. For me, it's an offense for government not to provide basic human rights like access to health. So we shouldn't have the women being the cheerleaders when it comes to political rallies. If the women all decided they didn't want to be cheerleaders, we'll see where the political parties go. We need a legal framework, of course. And in that respect, I must say that by signing up to all the international treaties, regional documents, we have made a lot of progress. We have made quite a lot of progress by domesticating some of these laws. We have laws on domestic violence, even though it's not working properly. We have laws on intestate succession, even though there are problems with it. We have laws against, or policies, laws and policies against child marriage, even though we just heard that Ghana has the highest number of child marriages in the world, which is very distressing. We have a good legal framework, and legislation to do away with discriminatory practices is a very important step. But we must not lose sight of the fact that we exist in a community that is governed not only by law, but by customs. And traditional attitudes can only be modified by radical changes in attitude, outlook, and behavior. Unless women know and understand the law, there cannot be any meaningful awareness of their rights and responsibilities under the law. Therefore, good legislation must be accompanied by strategies for educating the populace, especially women. Currently, we're talking about affirmative action. Sometimes I get the impression that a lot of people feel that once the affirmative action becomes law, all our problems will be solved. Very far from the truth. Do we understand what affirmative action seeks to do? As women, belonging, seeking empowerment and equality, this is a time for every woman to try and understand what affirmative acting is about. It is about trying to correct the imbalances. We are saying balance for better. There have been many imbalances in our system. Having an affirmative action law means that we can correct these imbalances over a period of time. Affirmative acting is not an open-ended process. It ends at some point once you have corrected the imbalance. But we need to make sure that everybody understands what it is. Because you will be surprised to hear that a lot of the opponents of the affirmative acting bill are women. You are asked, affirmative action for what? So what? Unless we understand and support, it will not work. Let me tell you a story that I came upon when I was trying to do a bit of research for this paper. The late Justice Anijagi, the first woman judge, Court of Appeal judge, writes that in the early 1960s, a bill was put before Parliament to abolish polygamy. Nobody said anything about it. They just put the bill there to try and abolish polygamy. The women took the trouble to educate themselves about the bill. The bill didn't make any provision for marriages which were monogamous marriages, men who were married to their wives under the monogamous system, but who had other wives under customary law, and therefore children and so on. The bill didn't make any provision for such people. So what happened? The women took the opportunity to educate themselves. And surprisingly, they didn't do it in Accra only. All over the country, they did it. They asked when the bill was going to be debated in Parliament. And they organized themselves. They came from all over the regions of Ghana, massed at Makola. On the day that the bill was going to be debated, they marched onto Parliament beating pots and pans. They didn't have drums or anything, pots and pans. They marched to Parliament and demanded that the bill be withdrawn. And needless to say, that bill has never seen the light of day again. This is the power that women can wield. How they organize themselves from all the regions, I don't know, but I believe that they did. It means that women, we have the power to mobilize for change. But we must understand clearly what that change is if we want to mobilize. We have to have educated ourselves very well so that we speak with one voice. I remember when the domestic violence bill went into Parliament, we spoke with many diverse voices. It was an uphill task getting the watered-down version even passed. Currently, we have bills to amend the interstate succession law because there are gaps. We have bills since 1992 when our Constitution was promulgated. There has to be an act regulating the property rights of men and women. That bill is before Parliament, but it's not going anywhere. We have many other bills that aren't going anywhere because we don't even bother to find out what is happening. Because we have made some progress, sometimes we deceive ourselves that we are doing very well. We may have done very well. It's jump, start, stop. Jump, start, stop. In order to rejuvenate ourselves, I suggest that we look at our strategies again. If we want to do advocacy, it has to be done with commitment. We must speak with one voice. We have many, many women's groups doing many, many different things. Why are we dissipating our energies in this way? Unity is important, and we can unite in order to be able to use our varied talents and strengths to bear upon the problems and challenges that we see. We must step out of our comfort zone and reach out to women, especially in the rural areas. Today we are here celebrating International Women's Day. I would suggest that next year we go to my village or somebody's village to celebrate International Women's Day. We must begin to think outside the box in order to come out with strategies to deal with our challenges. We need to do a lot of mentoring. If every woman in this room had one mentor in the rural areas, imagine what it can do when it comes to politics for women. It will do a lot. We must provide training, mentoring and training for our girls. At least, as far as education is concerned, now we have the free senior high school system. Gradually, this should ease the money problem, which forces parents to select their boys over their girls. Although over the years, I've been trying to tell parents that if you choose to educate your son and let your daughter not go to school, your lifestyle at the end of your life, when you retire, would be very low. Without meaning to offend anybody, when men get married, they think about their wives. They don't think about their mothers. Very few of them do. So whatever state your daughter is in, that is the lifestyle you will enjoy in your old age if you have to depend on her. We need to encourage our women and to support them so that they take advantage of the opportunities that come. Vocational training. Unfortunately, going around this country, I see that vocational training is there, but a lot of the girls who want to go into plumbing, carpentry, etc., are not encouraged. They want to be electricians. They're encouraged to go into hairdressing and dressmaking. I'm not saying that hairdressing is not important. It is important. But let them widen their horizon. Let them do other things that will let them be part of the community when it comes to leadership roles. We've come a long way, Madam Chair, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We've come a long way from the colonial days, when even the women who were privileged to have education had to suffer a lot of indignities. My mother had to retire from education when she had me. As soon as you had a child, you were out of the system, because you couldn't take care of a child and also teach or do whatever it is. And a lot of people in this room can identify with that. The women had to end their career when they had children. It was later on that the policy was changed, and my mother was able to go back to school and teach. We have customs and cultures that persist and make our progress very slow. But customs and cultures are a matter of attitude. And we need to find radical ways of dealing with these customs, which are barriers to our progress. And this mindset does not lend itself easily to solutions. That is why we have to think outside the box and craft and look for radical solutions to some of the problems that we face. When I was dean of the Faculty of Law many years ago, a gentleman came to my office, my outer office, and asked to see the dean. So my secretary put her head in the door and said, "Somebody wants to see you." I said, "Okay, let the person come," because I wasn't busy. The gentleman opened the door, saw me sitting there, said, "I said I wanted to see the dean." I looked at him and I said, "The dean is a person you see. Take it or leave it." Suddenly it dawned on him that I was a dean, and he was very embarrassed. He didn't know whether to walk in or to walk out. So I invited him in to come and transact his business. The worst part of it is he had a young lady with him. So I gave the father a seat in front of my desk, and I gave the girl a seat in my sofa. His first words to me was, "There is nothing that money cannot buy in this world." This daughter of mine has wanted to do law all her life, but she didn't do well at the A-levels. But I'm prepared to pay for her to come and do law. I said, "You are in the wrong place, man." I got up, opened my door, and said, "Please walk out. There is no way any amount of money can buy a space in this faculty for your daughter. Good morning." There he was sitting down. He didn't know whether to get up. Fine. And I stood there with the door open. So I had two secretaries. They were looking at me very peculiarly. The gentleman finally got up. His daughter followed him, and they left. I don't know. I closed the door and minded my own business. But the lesson is, one, I was a woman. I didn't need to be the dean. Two, because I was a woman, I can be intimidated into taking bribe and admitting. Sorry, it doesn't happen that way. We need to encourage and empower our girls especially those girls coming out, to be confident, to know that the sky is the limit. They don't have to be intimidated by anybody. They can do whatever they want if they are given the opportunities. We need to rededicate ourselves as members of the women's group and unite as women's groups to see how best we can use our diverse talents and abilities to achieve our goals. Unity of purpose, for me, is the most important factor. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Please let the clapping. Thank you, Mom. We've learned a lot from your delivery. You've taught us to identify and use radical solutions to achieve the needed results. We need to work as a team, step out of our comfort zone, and reach out to the unreached. Otherwise, we cannot correct the imbalances in the system. Once again, thank you very much. So at this point, let me kindly introduce an important personality who is in our midst, the Ambassador of South Africa, Madame Lulu Zengwani. Can you give us a wave? Thank you, Mom. We are happy you met with us. Okay. What's the name? I'm informed the presidential advisor is also in our midst. Angela. Oh. Thank you and welcome. Please let me know if there is anyone that we are missing out. Otherwise, Dr. Marina Kanwi, and coming from, and in our midst, we also have our Queen Mothers. Thank you very much. So we quickly move on to our panel discussion. I will respectfully ask the team on the high table to join the table where the ambassador is seated. And with the exception of Nana Jamina, Professor Agnes Apusika, and ask Professor Odrugazapo if you are around to join them. Amazing Grace Danso, a rep from Pepperdam Ministries. Kindly join them. Please be reminded that this is a live coverage, so we are live on the various televisions. Yeah. I wanted you to sit by the ambassador. They gave me, I don't have them, so if you, yes, So let's continue, innovate for change. Let's get interactive. Use the hashtag that you are saying to get interactive. Let the world know what is happening in Ghana. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you. Our team is ready. And we have so the panelists are Nana Dramina, Amazing Grace Danso, and Professor Agnes Apusika. They are going to be moderated by our one and only Professor Audrey Gazapo. Please, let's give up to her. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Facilitator, and a happy Women's Day to us all. And as you know, we're having a national dialogue on how to build a more equal Ghana under the theme Balance for Better, Examining Progress and Prospects for Gender Equality in Ghana. The facilitator mentioned the names of our distinguished panelists, but perhaps I should put their little titles by their names so you have a better sense of their identity. And I'm going to start with the person on my immediate right, and he's Mr. Nana Dramina, Head of the Civil Service. Okay, you see they have been mispronouncing your name. Mr. Ajekum Dramina, no Nana. I like that. Nana Kwesi Ajekum Dramina, Head of the Civil Service. And we have next to him, Madam I love your name, Madam Amazing Grace Danso, and she is a social justice activist and member of Pepperdam Ministries. And the last, not the least, is my sister, Professor Agnes Apusika, who is a governing council member of the Star Ghana Foundation, but also a professor at the University of Development Studies in Tamale. Welcome, all of you. And I'm just going to start by saying that I'll give you all 5 minutes to reflect on some of what you've heard today, what resonates with you, particularly in terms of the progress that women have made in Ghana. I'll start with, let me go to the other side. I'll start with you, Professor Apusika.
Thank you. Good morning again. I think that we've heard a lot from the speech. There is a lot to learn, a lot to reflect on. But I will just bring in a few things that I think should help with our reflections. One, I know the speech has pointed us to 3 key things and several other intersecting themes about legislation, governance, that we should look at. And in the discussion, I think one thing that stood out is the entrenched nature of discrimination against women, and in particular, issues about stereotyping, attitudes, belief systems that continue to hold us back. This is not an issue that, for all of us gathered here, it's not an issue that is new to us. We are all aware of the levels and the extent to which discriminatory attitudes affect the progress of women and girls, and probably all other excluded groups. We know of the harms, physical, emotional, even spiritual, that these things cause. Under today's theme, we are also called to be very innovative. And so I want to challenge us to think innovatively about the ways that we can tackle this particular issue about attitudes, mentalities, customs and cultures, and the way that they affect women. If we reflect, and it's also an opportunity and invitation for us to go back to the drawing boards, to our own cultures, to our own families, to our own communities, to learn more about these attitudes for ways that we can find tools to be able to deal with them. Are there some provisions within these cultures and customs that can be empowering or even become the starting point for empowering women as we move forward? Belief systems about marriage and women's rights, probably one of the biggest things that we could look at in terms of the issue about land rights, access to space, access to resources, ownership of property. Whether under matrilineal or patrilineal systems, there are certain provisions for women. Have we been able to draw on those spaces, those provisions? Whether it's on the basis of care, you own, men lead families, they head families so that they can take care for everybody. The principle of leaving no one behind can be seen in that principle. But it has been misappropriated to serve a certain cause that has affected women. Can we find space here to innovate within this space so that we can not just take our case, but also take the action to bring the change? The other thing, if I still have time to talk about, is the issue of being inclusive, actively inclusive in the ways that we mobilize as women activists. I think that we have done a lot. As a member of Next Right, I can say on authority that the rural woman and the rural woman's plight has been very central in the work that we do, but also in the constitution of our network. So we have worked with market women, we have worked with women who work in very remote areas. These are models, and I know there are other spaces that this inclusive work has started already, and the benefits that they bring to us. They become spaces for especially very deprived, very excluded women to see possibility, to see action, to see models that they take home for their family members, but especially the girls that they all have to bring up. Rural women remain the backbone of our economic system. I'm not looking at you, sorry. Remain the backbone of our economic system. They produce, they are actively involved in cultivation, they are actively involved in distributing, Many times they are castigated for being the middle people who are increasing prices and whatnot. But we forget about the boldness with which they step out to help in marketing, distributing and marketing resources. I should stop now, right? Okay. So I think it's also another space that we should be looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those reflections. We'll come back to some of those things and we'll give you an opportunity to. But I'm going to skip your amazing grace only because we want balance. So a lady has spoken and we're going to have Nana Dramna speak and give his 5 minutes, and then I'll come to you, Amit.
Thank you, Prof. Good morning, good people. Oh, why? Do I have a problem with anybody? You know, the response reminds me a couple of years ago, the early 90s. As a young analyst, I was invited to be part of a group that was supposed to go around this country. And Madam Moderator, the leader of the team was Her Excellency Nana Kuenyehia Rawlings. Unfortunately, I got to the room late, all women. So I said, Nana, you are the gentleman from office of the head of society. I said, yes, madam. So you feel uncomfortable? I said, yes, madam. So that is how we feel when we come into your space. And that was how I got into this. So then I realized that if this is how the ladies feel when they come into the male-dominated environment, then even as a young analyst, I started thinking, what can we do to ensure that this changes? But on a more serious note, I think today being a very wonderful, special day, I want to wish all the women of Ghana, and particularly the world, good celebration, and particularly my mom. I'm talking of my mom because she's 85 years. My father died when I was 10 years, left her with 6 children. Like our guest speaker rightly said, my mom had stopped working because she was taking care of the 6 children. Then this man died suddenly, and she's left with 6. So for me, it's a very important thing to recognize the role of women in the development of this country. And I believe sincerely that if we get the balance right, it helps. On the civil service front, as we reflect on some of these things, I think we've been trying the past few years to improve the balance. If one looks at the year from 2006 up to now, in terms of the numbers, we had gone from 74-26, that is for male 74, women 26. And the statistics I'm told now is around 55-44. But the main problem is we still have a lot of these 55-44, the 44 being ladies, still being in the lower ranks of the service. That's something that is. But though we've had a lot of improvements in the law. When I became head of civil service, one of the things that I promised myself was that before I left, we would increase the number of chief directors by at least 50%. The number of directors by about 30-40%. And I must say that we have gone beyond increasing the numbers beyond the 50%. But we have to do a lot more. Because sincerely, I believe that I've been worked with some very great women. Mrs. Bridget Catrick, who was my first director. I mean, she's the media past chairman of the Public Service Commission. A very tough woman, strong woman. And I usually introduce her and say that all the good things I learned from her, but I'm unable to say if there are bad things I learned from her. Because you look at me in a special way. So it's a very important thing, but I just want to go back some of the issues that we are trying to do, which I think has come about. The issue of mentoring is very important. I think it's very key, and in the civil service, it's one of the things that we're doing, trying to mentor a group of people who are around, mentoring ladies so that they can rise to the top, encouraging them to vie for top position. Indeed, in my office, at the last count, when I have more directors, female directors in my office than males. It's a deliberate policy to do that in the office of the head of civil service. I went around when we advertised for the position of chief directors to Actually, I talked to some of the leads. Some of them were even reluctant. And I said, if you don't show up at the interview, if you don't apply, there'll be trouble. I'll not talk to you. I deliberately went around to do that. What I'm trying to say with Madam Chair, Madam Moderator, is that the argument, the system where we tend to focus more on the women, supporting women, I think we need to also move a bit and get in touch more with the men also. I think that's also, we've moved on as a country. I think we've moved from the antagonistic kind of approach to this gender discussions to a more collaborative approach. But I think men at times feel left out. Indeed, one of the things that nearly discouraged me when I saw my sister's name, Pepe them, and I said, Pepe who? We the men, and she's going to be with me on the panel. Maybe I should find a reason not to show up. But that's just on the lighter side. I'm saying maybe we need, one of the key things, to get a lot more men into this discussion, into this equation. That will help us a lot. We have worked hard to try to improve in terms of getting people to senior posts, not just the chief director, even the directors. For the first time we've had, and I personally went, and that's one thing I give to Honorable, I'm not doing politics, Honorable Minister of Finance. I went and I said, look, we have a couple of people who are qualified to be directors of budget, but this lady has been doing this job for years. Every time people pass her by, if you don't do it, when you bring any other name for us to send to Public Service Commission, I'm not going to do that. I went and I told the Honorable Minister straightforward, if you bring any other name for us to process to be a director of budget and it's not daily, let me tell you, it will not fly. I will not send it to Civil Service Council and it will not go to the Public Service Commission. In fact, what I'm saying is, look, when we get people who understand, particularly those men in leadership position, and they are properly sensitized, they can also add to the discourse, and particularly when they are also in position to influence, then that is my last point about this is, when I was doing a bit of research on this, I suddenly realized that the civil service, because we're talking about, we did not have a policy on gender mainstreaming. I mean, we have various sectors having policies, but as a civil service, as a body, I looked around and said, where's our gender policy? And everybody was looking at me, oh, let's look, and everything that was brought was either for gender ministry or health. And I said, what of the civil service? So if nothing happens, and so out of this dialogue, I'm going to ensure that we have a specific policy for. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm surprised you're now coming up with a policy. I would have thought that, you know,
Various organizations have.
As a civil service, you wouldn't have. And I just wanted to say that it is heartening that even though we haven't achieved parity in the civil service, we're making progress, 54 to 44. We hope to improve that. However, if you look on your sheets, in your packs, there is more stark statistics. The fact that only 11.7% of the total population of Ghanaian women are in wage employment shows how vulnerable women are. And this is compared to almost 30% of men. So we still need to ask why and what can we do to improve these statistics. So, Amazing Grace, your submission. And perhaps you want to start by putting him at ease, explaining why you're called Pepe Dem Ministries.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for having us on this panel today. And I'm from the generation of shout-outs, so I have Pepe Dem Ministries representatives watching on TV, so I want to wave and tell them hi. And we are not here to make your life miserable in any way, but our name Pepe, actually, if a lot of people aren't aware, we have inspiration from an Adinkra symbol, one I'm actually wearing as a ring, which talks about Mekon na Petumre, meaning all pepper on a tree don't ripen at the same time. And we adopted that, targeting the issue of social inequality. And that's been our main goal, to bring everyone to parity. The Pepper Dem, you know, we're a younger generation as well, so playing a bit on that in the ministries, you know, we have a culture that is very religious, if you will, so just a play on that. And I'd like to point out, our name is Pepper Dem, not Pepper Men. For some strange reason, you hear Pepper Dem and people automatically think Pepper Men, which is not true. We actually pepper the societal system, the mindset that propagates gender inequality, societal inequalities. So we're not here to crucify anybody or any gender in particular, but to address the issues and the problems. So I hope that's enough.
Thank you for clearing that up, and it's really very important. So thank you, and I like that it comes from our culture,
yes.
And we're reminded, because part of this conversation is talking about cultural attitudes that are negative. We're pulling some positives from our culture, even though we don't seem to know these things very well. We must all look for that Adinkra symbol, right?
Yes. And to my reflections on Prof's speech, thank you so much for that. One of the things that was important to me in listening was hearing about equality. In our activism, one of the things people keep throwing back at us is that we should fight for gender equity and not gender equality. The idea of men and women being equal in every sense of the word frightens so many people in our society, which is quite a bit of a shock to me. It's almost like we are automatically conferring inferiority to women, but then we are very much prone to talking about women empowerment. It's like there's a romantic idea about women's rights and empowerment, but we don't like the nitty-gritty of it, where we put men and women on equal footing. So I was very glad that the theme and the speech reflected the idea that men and women need to be equal. It doesn't rob the other gender of their personhood. It's just putting us on the same status, which I think is more than fair as half of the world's population. And I also liked the talk about unity in our purpose and in our goals. One of the things that did come to mind, I remember Prof talked about the noise over the years in trying to do this kind of activism work. And I realized that sometimes there are people who hijack the movement. You know, we have so many different groups. I see them as different brands of water. For instance, there's Belaqua, there's Voltic, there's Specialized. You can put them all in one big bowl, and it would still be safe to drink, right? It's the same water going for nourishment. But then the hijackers, I see them more as oil. You can't dump that oil in that water and make it useful. So in our push for unity, I think we should also be aware of those who are around to actually take us backward and regress the kind of progress that we've made. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about, progress versus regression. I think in my generation, I have personally noticed more regression on gender posturing and mindset, which is quite alarming, because my parents' generation did a lot of work in bringing us to where we are, but then there's some kind of disconnect between that generation and ours in appreciating the issues of gender equality. And personally, one of my observations is there's a lot of religious twist to it, in why we are going in a bit of that regressive state. It's not to say religion is a bad thing, but some of the spins and interpretations of religious texts, religious ideals and values are actually taking us backward and eroding a lot of the progress that we have made in this activism space. So yes, these are my thoughts for now.
Excellent submissions. Thank you so much. Amazing Grace. I'll come back to Professor Apusega because you talked about the women's movement, and I want us to build on that a little bit. You talked about net right and the connections between the grassroots with people working at the grassroots and more on the national level. But my question to you is, how can we strengthen it, particularly the intergenerational linkages, and what Nana Dramina talked about, Nana Kwesi Ajekum Dramina talked about, which is we need to bring more men to the table to build a larger movement that would, and to borrow Professor Kuenyehia's word, do some radical stuff around changing the attitudes.
Thank you, my sister Audrey. I think I feel elated for the two contributions that have been made. First, that we have one individual, a person who is putting in a lot of efforts to ensure that in the corner that he manages, there is equity. There is, and I'm wary, you know, and when he was speaking, I was wondering, okay, this 50%, what does it translate into? You know, if we have one woman and you increase it by 50%, we'll probably end up with 1.5 women, right? So how are we really mobilizing to increase the participation? But if we had all these initiatives within our ministries, we would have traveled far. The fact also that you even have somebody in a leadership position who wants to engage and talk. I feel also many times that we are regressing in the way and manner that issues about women and violence against women are treated. We sit here today trying to celebrate women. 3 women, young women, are missing, and we don't seem to hear. You know, yes, the trial is going on, but what is the trial about? Is it about getting the women back, or because somebody jumped jail? And the collusions of a police system that is supposed to provide security and protection for women and the society, because this behavior, this attitude, it just reflects a bigger issue about how secure we are working with a system that is supposed to protect all of us. But getting back to what we can do and what the women's movement, I think one of the things that we have tried to do is to work with the ministries, especially the gender ministries, apart from our level as women working. We recognize that the issues are many, they are multi-sectoral, they are complex, and so it's important for us as the women's movement to be able to connect with the various sectors in the way they work, but especially also to support the gender ministry in the way they do things. Sometimes you have audience, you get the space, like we are here today. This is a very positive sign of what we could do collectively and what the keynote speaker also said, to unite. At the same time that we try to connect, and going back to you, it's important to look for those spaces that are more empowering. Because there are many times that we have as individuals, as NGOs, as organizations that have tried to talk with leaders, political leaders, public office leaders, to engage them on our issues, and either the door is open slightly, you get in and you get shut in, or it is closed off completely. These do not help our cause. Gender equality is about all of us as citizens. We also recognize that women have been excluded for a very long time, historically, culturally, and in many ways. So it's just the honorable thing to do when we support women, when we support activities that promote the cause of gender equality, especially women's empowerment, providing resources and providing the legislation and the spaces for those to materialize. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Grace, keep the mic, because I wanted to come back to you to give us a sense of what young people are doing around issues of gender equality, more concretely. Of course, you represent Pepperdam Ministries, but what is happening with the younger generation, and what kind of progress are you making in some of your initiatives?
All right, thank you for that question. From my perspective, as a young person, we are very attached to technology. And it's our way of life now. This is why Pepperdam Ministry started online. And our niche activism has been online work. So as young people, we are starting to just generate a lot of conversations and a lot of buzz around issues. Anything happens, we go online and we air our thoughts. And because we are quite a large number, it's forcing powers that be to listen. Something gets proposed, we don't like it, we make noise, and then we see a pullback either from the government, either from the private sector, or what have you. I'd like to cite an example where recently there were a bunch of comedians online making very distasteful, disgusting rape jokes about children, targeting musician Sarkodie's daughter. Just one was actually a teacher in GES who is working now with children, making all sorts of comments. And then when we picked up on that, not just Pepperdam, but other groups like the Coalition Against Sexual Abuse and what have you, all rallied together and decided to do something about it. We called for the organization that was sponsoring him in his comedy to take drastic actions, to send a message to people out there that these things, if they've been okay in the past, they are no longer okay. And we saw progress in that. He lost those endorsement deals, and even GES sent him a cautionary note citing some of our own language, which let us know that what we had done had actually gotten somewhere. So we are really galvanizing ourselves in the social media space and leveraging the kind of power that that space has to bring about some of the things that we want to see in real time and in real life. So that's one of the main things that we're doing.
Yeah, great. I remember some of the social media arguments on those things. And, you know, social media can be very querulous, and it's a space where women can be both empowered and disempowered.
Exactly.
And because you still have the mic, perhaps you want to reflect a little bit on how social media can be disempowering. You've given us examples of how it's empowering but can be disempowering.
Yes, on social media, I think a lot of people thrive on the sense of anonymity that it gives, the sense of security, because I'm not right in your face telling you the things that I'm telling you. I'm in the safety of my home or a restaurant or somewhere far away from you. So what we've seen is a lot of people shout at women who try to express themselves online. There's the issue of body shaming, where people just make all sorts of nasty comments about women's bodies because we live in a society that doesn't accept that our bodies belong to us. We are constantly being policed. There is slut shaming, where people try to use women's sexuality online to keep them quiet. So a woman offers a strong opinion criticizing something that is problematic, then someone will come and pull her sexual history as a means to shame her, demean her, and silence her from having a voice to speak. So these two main ways are some of the very powerful characteristics of social media that hinder women in the space. And the positive side of having groups like Pepperdem and other groups coming out, we've heard a lot of feedback from women telling us that they are happy to have us around because we give them peace and comfort in them being who they are and knowing that their voices are valid, knowing that their emotions about all manner of issues are actually quite valid and deserve to be heard. So yes, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, no, that's great. I'll come to Nana Jamna. If you have any reflections on social media, we'll be happy to have your reflections on it. And also, I'd like you to address, because you mentioned the fact that you are in the process of having a gender policy. What are some of the key issues that are addressed in that policy?
If I had known this question will come, I would not have said that. But before I come to you, Prof's point about 50%, what does it translate into? I agree with you. That's why I normally don't mention the actual figures. But when you say 50%, it's much more attractive. It looks like you've done something big. And that is a better way to project yourself. But the truth of the matter is, it wasn't so good. At the point in time, we had only 2. Then we went to 4. I think currently we'll be getting to about 9 chief directors out of about 26. But that's at the case we had 1, we had 2. So we're gradually moving on, and I'm hoping that hopefully this year, next year, we should be able to get a lot more. In the past, we did not even have people, women, trying to even apply. So the fact that we have a lot more applying itself is a huge progress, and I'm hoping that we can move on. Now, on the specific issue of what are some of the things that we are thinking about, I think basically the first thing, the late Ms. Loko, former Director General of GBC, when she was appointed GBC, she went to the washroom for the Director General and was simply designed for men. I mean, she actually made that point that it was designed basically for men. What I'm saying that is, there are so many things that we can look at in terms of looking at gender policy. Most of the policies that we have from the various sectors tend to look out. They look at the society in general, which is good, what is happening out there. But we do not have anything that really looks at the civil service as a body. And so that's one of the key things that we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at how can we change even the way we do our infrastructure to reflect this gender balance. It's very easy, gentlemen, to sit down. Our tables are even at times designed in such a way that a man can sit down and you can open your leg. The tables are open, it's a fresh air.
Dave, thank you so much for staying here on the JoyNews channel. Just gone by, you saw a plenary discussion at the dialogue on the status of a Ghanaian woman to celebrate International Women's Day, organized by Star Ghana in collaboration with the Ministry of Gender, Women, Children and Social Protection.